Now, Wade Keller, as soon as Tony Khan's stream ended on Wednesday afternoon with Tony Schiavone, where they named everybody in the gold block and the blue block, I thought it was a great presentation. Did exactly what we needed it to do. Wade Keller it's almost as if he had this draft already written up. And as soon as the stream with TK and Schiavone ended, he hit send on the PW Torch website. I want to read a little of what Wade Keller wrote on the Torch in regards to the Continental Classic. Keller says, AEW's Continental Classic field of 12 stays within a comfort zone and comes up short in terms of prestige and novelty. By that headline, it piqued my interest because that's exactly what I talked about. Comes up short in terms of prestige and novelty. That's a problem. He isn't wrong there. I just discussed that. Wade Keller says, and I quote, this is up on the Torch. If you guys want to go research it for yourself, if you want to go read it, it's on the Torch. My main takeaway from the Continental Classic field of 12 was the disappointment, says Wade Keller. I'm not disappointed in the potential match quality, though. Bryan Danielson versus Claudio, Andrade versus Daniel Garcia, Jay White versus Jon Moxley, and Rush versus Swerve Strickland are just a few of what should be excellent matches. Okay. The disappointment is the lack of novelty. This feels, for the most part, like wrestlers of influence assembling a group of wrestlers who are in their comfort zone. He goes on to say, it feels like a tournament where there aren't many candidates for potential, meaningful, surprising big wins. What are you talking about? Daniel Garcia and Brody King are in the same fucking block. On what planet do you look at Brody King and think he's not going to destroy Daniel Garcia? Right? Of course he is. Daniel Garcia is never going to get a win over Brody King. That's not a potential for a surprise win? I don't really understand that logic. Why would you think that? Swerve wrestling Jay White. Jay White's fresh. Swerve is injured. Swerve has taken a major injury he's banged up into this tournament. The fact that he even competed at a high level tonight was unbelievable to watch. How's he going to fare over 5 weeks of television? There's a lot of story in this thing and a lot of potential for story. So I don't really understand where he's coming from there. Tony Khan already told you before the tournament was even announced that it was going to be 12 of the company's best. I don't understand what he's saying here. Danielson is the biggest name in his bracket, with a pretty big drop-off in terms of stature in the storylines of AEW and actual likelihood of winning, to a second tier of Andrade, Kingston, and Claudio, then Brody next, and finally Garcia. Danielson seems like the only good choice to be in the final, as anyone else would feel like fodder to lose or a bad choice to win. Eddie Kingston, we're talking bad and negatively about Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston's not going to be a good one to have in the final. I don't really understand that. What is the disrespect towards Eddie Kingston? Andrade wouldn't be a good final. Claudio wouldn't be a good final. Brody King wouldn't be a good final. We've been asking for the House of Black to be featured on fucking television more. We're getting it. Brody King in the final wouldn't be great? I don't understand that. He's looking at it from who's the biggest star in this block. Everybody else doesn't measure up to Bryan Danielson. I didn't know that they had to. It's what the tournament is for. You're in there to showcase yourself against the best. If you're someone like Brody who hasn't gotten the opportunity, this is your opportunity to show what you're made of, because if you do well here, Tony Khan in 2024 may say, hey, I got another main event guy ready to be built. There you go. We've been asking for Andrade on television more. Andrade is one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. Now we got it, and we're complaining because he's not on the level of Bryan Danielson? Come on now. Moxley is the biggest name in his bracket, followed by Swerve Strickland and Jay White in the second tier. Then Roosh and Mark Briscoe in the next tier. And finally, Jay Lethal. This is the more intriguing bracket, as it could set up finals of Danielson versus Strickland, Danielson versus Jay White, or Danielson versus Jon Moxley. Any one of those, sign me up, shut up, take my money. This tournament, though, isn't going to mean all that much compared to what it could have with a stronger lineup. I mean, who are we realistically missing here? Who are we missing? Please, I'd love to hear in the chat who we're missing. Kenny Omega? I just told you why Kenny Omega is not in the tournament. He's the number one contender for the tag team championships with Chris Jericho. I didn't book the fucking story. Konosuke Takeshita should be there, for sure. Miro? I'd love to see Miro in this tournament. That's why I was so against Daniel Garcia being announced, but we're going to let that story play out. Who else are we missing? Will Hobbs? There's always going to be next year. This is not a one-time thing. Boom, 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 goodbye. We're done. Finite. This is going to happen next year, too. So why is he down on the names being announced? You asked for the best. You got the best. Hangman Page. It's not in the tournament. He lost to Swerve. Swerve winning that match the way that he did, and the presentation of that match, how great it came off, he deserves to be in the tournament. So why would Page get granted a spot in the tournament when Strickland beat him? I just look at little things like that. So he goes on to say, that's not to say the winner won't gain something, especially if it's ultimately a way to solidify Swerve as a top-tier threat to the AEW World title or showcase Jay White to rehabilitate him after he lost to a one-legged wrestler on pay-per-view despite help from the Guns. Swerve is not going to be ready for a world title right now. If this is a placeholder for him, that is all we need. Because winning something like this is AEW showing their backing to Swerve and basically putting him on a pedestal saying, hey, man, you're the next in line. We know how valuable you've been. You know we care about you. Your body of work shows we're going to reward you. That's what that means. But Jay White, I don't know why we're rehabilitating Jay White, because Jay White is not buried. I don't understand the narrative of Jay White. Jay White's buried, pal. He lost to a one-legged man, pal. No, so what? So what? Jay White was undefeated before MJF beat him. Was it silly? Sure. Could it have been done differently? Sure. I've documented that several times this week alone. But Jay White's not buried. Jay White looked great tonight in his match against Roosh. Goodbye. On to the next. And Jay White's going to be in the field of the Final Four anyway. Where do you think he's going? If Moxley or Danielson win, it's fine, but not newsworthy. They were already top-tier stars, and winning this tournament won't give them a claim to having survived the most loaded, grueling series of matches against AEW's very best. This tournament could have offered novel, intriguing matches with Kenny Omega, Darby Allin, who right now is training to climb Mount Everest. He's not eligible for the tournament. If he was and wasn't injured, Tony Khan probably would have put him in there. Samoa Joe, can't happen. He's wrestling MJF at World's End, where the finals will be taking place for this tournament. Kenny Omega, already told you, the number one contender for the tag team titles. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just telling you what's on television. Powerhouse Hobbs. Can't mention Hobbs without mentioning Takeshita. Malachi Black. Everybody's been asking about Malachi. I don't know if there's something wrong with Malachi. I don't know if there's indifference towards Malachi. I don't know if he's injured. Hangman Page. I just mentioned Page. Swerve or Page. Which one are you going to go with? You're going to go with the guy who won, and that is Swerve. Page, he's got something else to keep his mind busy, whatever that is. Sorry. Miro. Yes, Miro is a glaring omission from this tournament. Yes. But right now he's in a story with CJ, which probably could have played out well in the tournament because Andrade is being managed or guided business partnership with Andrade. So Miro probably, out of all these names, makes the most sense and probably the one name that I have a gripe with being omitted. Sure. Where's Miro? I would have absolutely taken Garcia out and put Miro in. Then he mentions Wardlow. Wardlow's not here for the Continental title. Why are we mentioning Wardlow? This is not a tournament right now for Wardlow. Wardlow wants one thing and one thing only, and that is the AEW title, and wants to ruin MJF's life. Not going to do that by wrestling fucking 20-minute bangers in a fucking tournament, round-robin style, that leads to World's End. This tournament could have offered novel, intriguing matchups. Debunked all the names that Wade Keller brought to the table, except Miro. The tournament includes Garcia, who is a talented wrestler, who always has good matches, but has been marginalized and defined down so much this year to the point of seeming unworthy of being selected to be in this tournament. That I agree with. But the thing is, no matter how great Garcia is as a pro wrestler, the dancing and the shtick and the gimmick mixed with this type of tournament and what it embodies, the gimmick and what he presents himself to be on television is what people are going to think about when they look at Daniel Garcia. Being a pro wrestler is going to come to be number 2. So there's a problem there. And I agree with Wade Keller in that because the tournament isn't really something right now for Daniel Garcia based on what he's been doing and how low on the card he's been. But I said, if this leads to Daniel Garcia shedding that gimmick, potentially joining the Blackpool Combat Club, which should have been done already, and becoming the pro wrestler that we know he is, then it lends it to be the right decision for him to be there. And people ask for story within the tournament. I don't know if you guys really understand. The tournament itself is a story. Daniel Garcia being in there is a potential story. The Blackpool Combat Club being in there, all 3 of them, is a potential story. The option for rematches here is a potential story. A lot of these guys have crossed paths one way or another earlier this year. Stop with the excuses. Stop. I'd much rather have seen Kyle Fletcher or Takeshita or a talented tag wrestler testing himself as a singles wrestler. Nick Jackson, Anthony Bowens, Colton Gunn into this spot. If any of them beat some of the big names in their brackets, it would elevate them and not necessarily hurt the wrestler that they beat. But if Garcia beats big names on the roster, it's just the comedy goof with the embarrassing dance scoring a freak win that ultimately doesn't matter. Seems like some blatant disrespect to Daniel Garcia, as if he can't beat anybody in this tournament. Meanwhile, he's wrestled Andrade, banger, wrestled Moxley, banger, wrestled Bryan Danielson several times, banger, banger. I don't understand the logic there. Is the gimmick goofy? Is the dance goofy? Yeah. But what if it is the story for Daniel Garcia in the tournament? Already drafting a fucking hate piece on AEW before we even get the man to wrestle on television. The fact that he's an awesome wrestler doesn't mean he belongs in it from a storyline standpoint. That said, I'm open to this being a tournament designed to rehabilitate Garcia by having him score a series of big wins and make it to the final or even win it, if the goal is to have him shed everything he's done since deciding to return to the Jericho Appreciation Society and later deciding that becoming a trending GIF was more important than being a serious wrestler with the potential to draw money above the lower-end comedy bit he's doing now. So he knows that it's a potential for a breakout for Daniel Garcia in the ways that I just documented, but hates the decision that he's in there. So then you're taking Daniel Garcia's entry into the tournament and kind of telling Tony Khan without telling Tony Khan that you don't trust him to do the right thing. There's a reason why he's there. There's a reason why he's there. Let's see it play out. Normally, I'm the type of guy to jump down everybody's throat. This, that, it sucks. This is something that I'm willing to see play out because this is several weeks of television. Several weeks of television. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a tournament. Round robin. Unpredictability is going to be at the forefront here. No one in this tournament is going to be out of their comfort zone. And there's very few matches that are going to feel novel. Miro versus Moxley, Takeshita versus Darby, Wardlow versus Omega, Hangman versus Fletcher feel to me like matches a little outside the comfort zone and familiar friend groups that wrestlers so often occupy in AEW's universe and more of a challenge for TK to book finishes for. They'd inject different styles of matches into the tournament also. See, that I agree with. That I agree with. Every tournament that Tony Khan has done has been very predictable and basically laid out for the winner to be predicted before we even see the tournament play out. The latest example of this was the Grand Slam Eliminator Tournament. Like, we all knew Samoa Joe was winning that tournament. We all knew Samoa Joe was winning that tournament. The Owen Hart Final was even predictable. CM Punk is in it. Samoa Joe is in it. This is the first time in 19 years they're going to be wrestling here in the United States. There you go. There's the final. Very predictable. Not to say the tournament was bad, but it was very predictable. Tony Khan has a problem of booking his favorites in the tournament and giving the tournament to be the foundation for something to happen, and you could see it play out before it actually plays out. That I don't like. That I don't like. So Wade Keller is basically saying, well, if you put these guys in the tournament and put these different styles against each other, it would feel like AEW is breaking out of that. Because right now, the way that I see it, it is very difficult for me to not sit here and tell you that Bryan Danielson is winning this entire fucking tournament because all he's ever wanted was to wrestle in the G1. Tony Khan brought the G1 to him in AEW, and this is his last full year of wrestling. For him to win the one title that merges the Ring of Honor World Championship, which is synonymous with Bryan's career, and New Japan, I can't unsee Bryan not winning the tournament. So this actually may be that, but we don't really know yet. It's all dependent on if Bryan is healthy. Jay Lethal feels like he's going to win 0 matches in this thing and just be used to stack up easy points without political gripes for top wrestlers. Lethal certainly shouldn't be pinning or even wrestling to a draw anyone in this bracket. I could see a draw with Briscoe or perhaps Roosh, but his matches are just Rampage material, and he's taking a spot from everyone who could have had a much more intriguing match with everyone else in the block. It's another guy we've been asking for on TV, Jay Lethal. Great pro wrestler. Why are we complaining? If he's there to take losses, great. You know the one thing that I look at, it's a victory in itself. Jay Lethal wrestling away from the fucking clown circus that is Jeff Jarrett's stable, where there's nothing but carny shit going on in every match outcome. Take it as a W. What is there to complain about if Jay Lethal is on TV and he's wrestling for 15 minutes every week? Don't get it. The 20-minute time limit, while not unreasonable to have given their all-TV matches, sets up an escape hatch for tough situations where a win for one wrestler would really mean something because it'd be a shock to see the other wrestler lose clean. AEW's used the time limit draw how many times? I could probably count on one hand. Why are we expecting for them to break it out 4 or 5 different times here in the tournament when they haven't even done that 4 or 5 different times in 4 years? Really? Come on. So when Moxley faces Strickland or Jay White, Tony Khan can just book them to draw and tout what a great match they had without having any of them do a clean job. Same with Danielson in the other bracket. The bracket isn't strong enough where Danielson beating any of them is a big deal, unfortunately, but rather then running through the field. Khan can protect Kingston or Andrade or even Brody if he wants. There's a lot of talent in this tournament who will be motivated to make their matches special. And if AEW does its job well, they'll tell a good story with the order of matches and the race to have the most points by the end. It just doesn't seem like a brave selection of wrestlers, as it has very few novel matchups outside the usual comfort zone of those wrestlers, and the field of potential winners is pretty small unless they're going to take a chance to try and elevate someone unexpected, but I don't see a good candidate for that to happen. Takeshita, Hobbs, Fletcher come to mind. There's good choices for that, but they're not in the tournament. Hobbs doing well in the tournament could have helped him make a more convincing case for the World Championship match that he's been pining for. A braver and more newsworthy field would have included a lot of matches where the outcome wasn't a foregone conclusion or one wrestler winning over another would have significant impact and a surprise element, but also be prudent. Having Lethal pin Strickland would be shocking, but also stupid. Having Fletcher pin Danielson or Moxley would have not only been shocking, but also serve a purpose of sending a message to the fans that Fletcher is the real deal on the rise. Fletcher, I don't know why he keeps mentioning Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher is not being turned into a singles performer. He's only there as a single because Mark Davis is out. As soon as Mark Davis gets back to TV, the Aussie Open are going to be back in the tag team division. I don't understand that logic. I don't. This is not a Jay and Jimmy Uso situation right now. For all we know, they're going to end up getting back together. Give me a break. This is a nice tournament, but not what I was looking for and hoping for to establish this as a truly uncompromised top field with, say, 12 of the top 16 singles in the company. Feels like a gimmick and a showcase for good matches, than a true statement to jar disgruntled or disengaged AEW fans out of their apathy and making AEW TV appointment viewing. AEW is always a place to watch good matches. This tournament is just more of that, but then adds a point system and some consequence to the wins and losses. The Triple Crown aspect of it feels convoluted and unnecessary. That I absolutely agree with. And unfortunately, the field isn't strong enough to establish this out of the gate as a game changer for AEW or incentivized to bring many fans back who are feeling apathy towards some aspects of the product otherwise. I get that some people feel like AEW doesn't have story. I don't really understand those people. I don't. We got Christian Cage and Luchasaurus, Nick Wayne, Adam Copeland. We'll get into that. Tremendous stuff tonight. MJF, Adam Cole, Samoa Joe. Tremendous stuff tonight. We even got a devil appearance and a voice. Don't know who it is. Hopefully it's not who I hear rumblings about online. But the tournament itself is a story. I really don't understand how people don't see the tournament as a story. This is 1 week. There could be injuries. There could be come from behind fucking injuries where someone pulls out an upset. The injury prolongs his fucking venture on into the tournament. We got different styles, different sizes. Tony Khan has a problem of choosing his favorites. I get it. But that doesn't mean that this tournament is going to be a bust. AEW needs more story. We get it. They need more solid story. We get it. But this, mixed with what they have going on right now, if they continue to build the way that they have been tonight going into World's End, and then we get this tournament that also gives us story, what the fuck is there to complain about? There isn't anything to complain about. People are just complaining for the sake of complaining. The only aspect of this tournament that I disagree with is the fucking convoluted aspect that we take the Ring of Honor title and the Never Openweight title and merge it to make the Continental title. We didn't need all that. Number one contender for AEW's world title at Revolution would have been perfect. But this is year one of a fucking tournament that Tony Khan is getting off the ground this year. Who knows what changes he's going to make next year? Who knows who's going to be in the tournament next year? I'm sure Tony Khan will take the criticism of the people that have complained about this thing and duly noted. He'll make the changes as appropriate as he needs to next year. Because when fans revolt around the product, normally Tony Khan listens. Normally. Their problem is they don't listen hard enough. They'll go back, they'll give you a great show, they'll have one fucking stinker of a show, and people will fucking rate it and review bomb it on cagematch.net, and Tony Khan will lose sleep for it over this show for weeks. And then he'll come out next week and give us a banger show, and then we'll get back on the right track. It's like we got to whip him back into shape. But he is someone that does regularly listen to the fan base. The problem with him is listening on a consistent basis. Feel like he listens, but then goes back and does what he wants to do, and then what he wants to do sometimes is not always the best decision. Let's see this thing play out. We got 1 week of this tournament this week, and it's already gotten fucking rave reviews from what I see. What's the fucking problem? Because Takeshita's not in the tournament. Great, I'd love to see Takeshita too. Kenny Omega's not in the tournament. Okay, Kenny Omega's here for the next 5 years. Where the fuck do you think he's going? Like he's not going to compete in a Continental tournament. And whoever else you're missing from the tournament. The tournament is a story. 6 weeks of a tournament is a story. I don't give a fuck what you think. Mixed with everything else, Dynamite was fucking focused, laser focused tonight. Cut the shit.